Here now to discuss the legal ramifications of Epstein's death, civil rights attorney Avery Friedman and criminal defense attorney Richard Herman. Good to see you both. So, Richard, you know this MCC, Metropolitan Correctional Facility. How could this happen, in your view?
I don't know how it could happen. It's outrageous. It's so egregious, Fred. This facility is such a lockdown facility. They even have a SAMS unit in this facility. I mean, El Chapo was in there. You have terrorists in there. You have the worst dangerous gangsters are there in this facility. You know, that's my home away from home. We've been down there so many times, Fred. There is no way anybody on a suicide watch in this facility could have done this. There's
and
just
what if
no
he
way.
was no longer on a suicide watch? Yes, officials say that a couple of weeks ago, it appeared that there may have been an attempted suicide, or at least something left marks on his neck. Why wouldn't he be on suicide watch if he was not at this juncture?
Well, there were tons of documents released yesterday, Fred. A lot of people are going to be incriminated in this case. He's looking at 45 years in prison. The only way for him to reduce that prison time would be to cooperate with the feds and give up the names of the people that he got underage girls for, and he would have to do that, and he would do that. And so a lot of people had good reason to get rid of Jeffrey Epstein. The judge has to investigate this case. Everybody in that facility has to be under investigation. Who got to the COs? How could he be released from a suicide watch?
But officials are already quick to say no foul play suspected.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
they're trying to cover their butts.
What a bizarre response. What a bizarre response. I mean, the fact is that we have the most serious criminals held in that facility. How on earth, especially when the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in New York released transcripts which had been sealed, which disclosed information about these young girls and other people. The idea of that release Friday, and the fact that they discovered the body at about 6:30 this morning, Frederica, requires FBI involvement. Bureau of Prisons has indicated between the Inspector General and the FBI there are some questions that need to be answered. And at this point, nobody knows the answer.
So this was already going to be an incredible, it's already shaping up to be an incredible investigation of what happened involving Epstein when he was living. But now we're talking about an investigation of what happened in his death. You've got the Attorney General who, via tweet is saying, in a statement that he is incensed. He wants to see Inspector General involve investigators, investigating the investigators. So, Richard, the investigation of this alleged sex trafficking will continue. Will it not, even though Epstein is dead? And now you also may have a separate investigation of how did he die? How and what were the events that led up to him being found apparently hanged?
Right. So that's twofold, Fred. First of all, Judge Berman, who is a wonderful judge, I have total respect for him in the Southern District. He made a determination, no bail, no bond, incarcerate him. So now he has to lead the investigation as to why this man was not protected when he was in custody. And again, Fred, this facility is one of the biggest lockdown facilities in the United States. This is an impossibility. There are cameras everywhere, Fred, and cameras everywhere. People are watching and monitoring every move of every person in that facility. As far as the other investigation goes, it'll continue. It'll continue without Epstein's participation, but there's a lot to go through. There's a lot to look at. That Florida deal that was made years ago. That was like a corrupt deal.
That's right. That's right.
And if I could add now, Epstein's attorney, Mark Furnich, has released this personal statement as a result of this death. Also calling for an investigation, calling for a full investigation into Epstein's death, and is now placing blame for the death on several parties, including overzealous prosecutors. I'm quoting now: pandering politicians, complaint judges, and hysterical press corps.
If you're representing him, you make that kind of statement, Frederica. But the fact is, it's Bureau of Prisons. Each federal agency has an inspector general. That's the way that works. It'll be the inspector general working with the FBI to find out how this could possibly happen. And certainly, it is not above suspicion to think wait a minute, so many people will be affected by this. So many people will be implicated.
There were allegations of a lot of prominent
indicted.
names that may have been
Exactly
involved
right.
in knowing or in some way been complicit in the trafficking of these young ladies.
That's exactly right.
I know Mark Furnish. He's a wonderful lawyer. He's not going to sit down on this one, Fred. Listen, to be intelligent and discuss this, who was to benefit by Epstein dying? There's so many very powerful people who would benefit by this. Someone got to a CO. I do not believe 1 second that this was a suicide, Fred. They have to look into this.
Oh my goodness!
So a little bit more on that statement, word for word, coming from Mark Furnish. He says, there seems to be plenty of blame to go around for this unthinkable tragedy. Overzealous prosecutors, bent on locking up a presumptively innocent man posing no real danger or flight risk. I speak as an outraged citizen and defense lawyer, not as a representative of Jeffrey Epstein's defense team.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line on it is that, a defense lawyer can say whatever she or he wants to say, but the idea of blaming politicians for a suicide, blaming the media doing their job as being responsible for this is really outrageous.
No,
and the idea that
Richard's
Richard's saying, well, it doesn't seem like a suicide, it seems preposterous, as if somebody was behind it. No, he committed suicide.
Yes.
The documents were released.
How do you know?
That's what triggered it. Well, how do you know it's some other person?
I don't know.
There's no
they have to investigate it.
that.
That's why. Who stood to gain by him dying?
So
it
has provoked a lot of questions about.
When I'm talking, you can't hear me.
Yeah, it's provoked a lot of
by him dying.
Well,
there were very powerful,
and it has provoked a lot of questions
about individuals involved with him.
About how this happened.
How about the victims? How about the victims?
But still, Avery and Richard, unresolved here is how these victims are feeling now, learning that he has taken his own life. And we've heard from some of the attorneys representing some of the accusers who feel like they will still pursue Epstein's estate by way of perhaps civil cases, but they don't feel that the case is closed as a result of the death of Jeffrey Epstein. We really appreciate your candor and expertise. Richard and Avery, thank you so much.
Okay, Fred. Thank you.